Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hammer Podcast. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button to help grow this channel. It is greatly appreciated. Today is May 23rd, 2020, and we are talking with Janine Miller. Janine Miller attended the Victory Christian Academy in Ramona, California in the late 80s. She is also the author of the book Pieces of Victory. The link will be in the description below. Now, in today's podcast, we will not only be talking about her time there at Victory, we will also be talking about some of the inhuman monsters that ran these homes, plus her journey to raise awareness about the abuse in these Christian reformatories, which is still going on, by the way. So, without further delay, let's talk with Janine. I was doing some research on, I'm not really familiar with this particular home. I've been doing some research on it. But was it affiliated with?
It's the same as Mackenzie. It's the same as Mackenzie.
Right, right. Well, was it affiliated with Lester Roloff too?
Yes,
it
was a Lester Roloff program.
Yeah.
And again, his history is 1968 with the Rebecca Home for Girls.
Right.
And it is all interconnected. And this is very important because the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch in Missouri is still abusing girls as we speak. So this is very important to know, to listen to my story, because whatever is going on in my program, whatever was going on with the program that I was locked in, is going on with the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch. They're pretty much the same. They're sister programs.
Right. There's a lot of sister programs out there. There's Bethesda. That was I did a few podcasts with those ladies, and I to give you a little background about me, I was not in the home. I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I went to the Roloff Christian School. Okay, and this school was behind the Rebecca home, and
oh my God!
Yes, so I'm very, very familiar with Lester Roloff.
Oh no!
Yes, I mean,
that's awful.
I was beaten, I was paddled, you know. Some of the stuff that you girls went through, I did not go through. We weren't locked up, we weren't forced to eat our own vomit. It was none of that. The girls, the homes had it worse than the school. So, but
wow, and this was a school that you can come home to.
Right. We went. We got on a bus. They took us to school, and then we came home. Yes.
Oh, did you tell your parents what was going on, or were they part of the cult?
I had no idea what was going on. That's the thing. I had no idea.
Oh.
Yes. According to the Rebecca girls, they were sworn to secrecy. None of them said anything. It was brainwashing going on. You know what I mean?
I was referring to the paddling. I was referring to the paddling.
Oh, they knew about that. They knew about that stuff. They knew about it. But it wasn't to the point, like a lot of the girls, it wasn't to the point where they were bleeding and stuff like that, But we did have our share of weirdos there.
I can imagine.
Yes.
That doesn't surprise me.
And it really turned me off to religion. I mean, it wasn't really my mom's idea. It was my dad's idea, because my dad was a disciple, so to speak, of Lester Roloff. He really, really enjoyed Lester Roloff. So.
That's not good. So I can only imagine what your home life was like.
My home life.
I can interview you on my show. Go ahead with your home. I'm so used to interviewing.
Right. Well, the home life was okay. I mean, we had our, we weren't, versed in Bibles or anything like that, but we got our share of discipline. You know what I mean?
I can imagine. How could you escape it being connected to that?
Right. So
mastermind.
I had another podcast that I did. It was called Two Guys and a Mic, and I was with another guy, and I had been reaching out to some of these Rebecca girls because I'd been browsing the internet, and I came across a forum about the Rebecca home, and these girls were talking about their life there, and I was basically like, wow. I mean, and I looked on YouTube, I looked everywhere, I couldn't find anything else on it. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is something we could talk about. And I put out some ads out there, and nothing happened. And then 2 years later, after the Two Guys and a Mic podcast had already dissolved, um, a girl named Deanne Dawsey called me up. She was from the Rebecca home, and she wanted to be on the podcast. Well,
Oh, wow.
the podcast it had been gone for almost 2 years. And I said, well, I guess it's time to start up another podcast. So I started up with Deanne, and then with Deanne came
Oh,
some of the girls from Bethesda, and it just spiraled from there. So, I mean, it's good
wow.
because a lot of there's a couple of videos out there like with you with the Victory Christian Academy, and there's some. Actually, I was listening to one today with Circle of Hope.
Miranda,
No, it was Circle of Hope Girls Ranch. Um,
right, Amanda Householder?
yes, yes,
Yes,
and
I interviewed her too.
I was listening to the podcast, and there was nothing about the Rebecca home or the Bethesda home. You know, so I mean there's so many
It is
girls homes out there, even boys homes, the Lighthouse, the I mean a lot of
exactly.
and the problem is a lot of them. I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them are affiliated with Lester Roloff. He is the prime cancer. I like to call it a cancer because I mean this guy
It
has
is a cancer.
he's been dead since '82, and these sycophants have been carrying on his ministry as
I
far as
agree.
the
It's New
Rebecca home.
Bethany, Rebecca Homes. Circle of Hope is a Lester Roloff program, like you said.
Uh huh.
And the Hephzibah House, which
Yes.
finally closed down after 5 decades. It took them 5 decades to close down an abusive facility. It's horrifying to know that these places are allowed to stay open in the United States of America. And I know the answer. It's a money-making propaganda.
Oh,
It's a billion-dollar industry.
the it's a money making machine. The churches are money making machines. I mean, where else can you go and people are going to give you 10% of their earnings? I mean, there's nowhere else. So, I mean,
I agree. And that is the main problem. I feel you can't abuse your child in the privacy of your own home. You'll be on the news, but by golly, you can pay someone and send your child away, and those programs could abuse children, and there could be numerous reports up the wazoo, and no one does anything.
right,
No one is doing anything. I feel like America is just turning a blind eye. It's going viral, so we are making headway on it.
right.
But
It is. They are turning a blind eye, and I think it's because they call themselves Christian. Oh well, it's a Christian. It's
exactly,
a Christian home. How could it be bad? Believe me, a
and
lot.
I always
So some of the sickest people I've ever seen or have heard of have come out of churches. Whether it's pedophiles, um, people who scam you, it's all coming from the churches, and people don't want to hear
it's
that because they figure that the
I
church
feel
is an institution
safe
that's
place,
supposed to
right?
be Christ-like, and it's not.
Right. And a lot of people are just naive to think, oh, well, it's Christian. It's a Christian boarding school. And, at one point I thought, naively at 16 and thought, you know, I love my Christian school. I love my congregation. I just never thought there would be a place like this in a million years. I never thought. And just because someone slaps on Christianity doesn't make it so. And we are shedding light on the subject matter that just to be aware, you can believe what you want to believe, but just be cautious and look for the red flags, where you send your children
Oh, definitely.
or work it out at home. There are different alternatives. And it's a whole family dynamic. It shouldn't be singling out one child. It's really a family. It should be treated as a whole instead of separating the child.
Right. And the thing is, a lot of these Christian churches, I guess, it's more so the Baptists. It's not really the Methodists or the Presbyterians. It's more of the Baptists, especially the fundamental Baptists. They're always saying how the mother should be at home. If the mother's at home, then she should be taking care of the children. I don't know why they're sending. Well, maybe it's because they don't want to send them to a public school because public schools are evil. So maybe that's what it is.
And a lot of times they'll send them to these reform schools, conversion therapies. Now, conversion therapies, James Swift was locked into a conversion therapy because his parents couldn't accept the fact that he's gay. And they sent him there, and they tortured the hell out of him. They were torturing the hell out of him at home, and it was orchestrated by their pastor. And then the pastor suggested the conversion therapy, and they're breeding grounds for raping the boys in there,
Oh
sex
yes,
trafficking.
yes.
And that's exactly what happened to him.
I
I don't know if you've seen that interview or not.
no, I haven't. I've
He's on
heard.
The Haunted, season 2,
Okay,
by the way.
yeah, I
I'm
have to
sorry.
look at that.
We both are.
Oh, okay. I will. Is it on YouTube?
It's not on YouTube. I haven't seen it, but if you can find it, send it to me so I can put it on his website.
Uh-huh.
I've been searching for it, but I've just been so busy lately that I haven't seen it. But if you get on Netflix,
Uh-huh.
season 2, Haunted, third one down, it's called Cult of Torture. And that's what they are. They're cults.
Okay.
And I'm a survivor of a cult. Mackenzie is a survivor of a cult.
Yes.
Circle of Hope is a cult. These Rebecca Home for Girls, that's definitely a cult.
Now, one thing about Lester Roloff that I remember, he was very adamant about condemning homosexuality. Because I remember back in the day, they made us listen to his sermons all the time. And it was like
Oh, no.
nails on the chalkboard. But he was always talking about the end time sin, homosexuality. It's a sin. It's reprehensible. It's of the devil. But yet, I talked to a lady who didn't want to be interviewed. She was very, very, very scared. But she was saying that there was rape going on in the lighthouse for men at the Rebecca home, and I mean I can't confirm
Which is
that.
such a contradiction to,
Right.
if you think that these boys are an abomination to God, why are you raping them?
Right. It's
You
like
have to be homosexual to do, obviously it's about control. Rape is about control.
yes.
But you're definitely not heterosexual if you're raping them. I mean, it's crazy.
It seems like the people that are talking about it the most or condemning it the most are usually the ones that are doing it. Take Ted Haggard, for instance. He was always talking about homosexuality and how wrong it is and how it's a sin, but yet they found him with a gay hooker and with meth. So,
Wow.
I mean, like I said, Lester Roloff, I don't know much about his personal life. He never made that public. Um, but one thing I can say about Lester Roloff is he believed what he said. Um, as far as health, as far as living, what he said, he lived it. You know what I mean? He was a true,
Right.
true believer. Um,
Wow.
his minions, Wiley Cameron, I think his name is Charles Crummy. I know his last name is Crummy. When they took over the homes when Lester Roloff died, it was a whole different story. So,
Oh, no.
yes.
That's awful. I mean, what he did to the girls was awful because he was beating them. It's awful. There's
Right.
newspaper articles about him.
Yeah.
But, they took it a step further. And these are breeding grounds for rape. They're breeding grounds for hitting girls, beating girls, starvation. The state is not overseeing any of it. And I understand religious liberties. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But not when it comes to abusing our children. I say this time and time again on every interview.
Yeah.
When it comes to abusing our children, the government needs to come in. We need to step in and do something and save these children. It's criminal what they're getting away with.
The problem is
Uh,
when the state government shuts them down, they just move to another state.
exactly.
So
Exactly. And Victory Christian Academy is the perfect example of that.
the question
You,
is, will we ever be able to shut these places down?
right.
The only
And
way,
one
the only,
state might be different than the other,
right, right,
with their legalities. And I'll give an example. In California, the preacher from a darker dimension had to shut his down because he was unlicensed. It's either get a license or get out. So he chose
right.
to get out, and he wasn't meeting up to fire code standards. But there were numerous police reports on child abuse. That was just put by the wayside, and he moved his facility to Mexico and to Florida and rebranded it to Mexico, calling it Genesis by the Sea.
Yeah.
And then Victory turned into the Lighthouse. But the laws are different in Florida. You can have unlicensed facilities in Florida.
Yeah. And the thing
Did you know?
is, yes, I did know that. And of course, Rebecca Home, they had this big fight about the licensing. They had to shut down. Deanne Dawsey was actually the one that shut it down. She sued them, and
Oh,
they were
wow.
yes. If you listen to Deanne Dawsey's on my podcast, she tells you about it. But what happened was they moved from Texas to Arizona, and then they got shut down there, and then they moved from Arizona to Florida, and
My God.
they
That's
became
awful.
New Beginnings Girls Home. So
That's awful.
yes, so the only way you're ever going to be able to stop these people is to install some sort of legislation for all states. I mean, but can you do that? I don't think you can. Every
I
state has their
we
own
we
legislation.
tried. We tried to pass a federal bill. So it was introduced by George Miller in California
Uh huh.
in 2010, and then it was reintroduced by Adam Schiff. Now, personally, I feel it's dead in the water. So it passes in the House and it stops in the Senate, and it did that twice. And now I feel that nothing is happening. I urge people to get a hold of their congressman and also Adam Schiff. This needs to be passed. It's
Who is Adam Schiff? Is he
congressman, and
for
he's congressman in California.
okay, for California? Okay, okay.
George Miller introduced it, and then George Miller retired, and Adam Schiff had a federal bill called Stop Child Abuse in Residential Programs Teens Act.
Okay.
And it was reintroduced, and now nothing is happening. So maybe with all of these podcasts, with all of these TV shows on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they will go viral, and we will just make some noise to get
Oh yeah.
Adam Schiff to reintroduce it. So I urge you to contact Adam Schiff.
It seems to be
Send
stirring
him our podcast.
it seems to be stirring the pot just a little bit because we got people who've been commenting on the podcasts.
That's
So
awesome. That's
yes,
great.
well, it's on the podcast with Mackenzie. There've been people saying that that didn't happen. People have been trying to protect these homes. So
Exactly.
people are listening. So that's a start. So
Right. Even if it's negative
yes.
comments, we had some negative comments about Pieces of Victory on my show.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, okay, I ended up blocking her, but I thought to myself, well, this is good because I just talked about brainwashing on my show. And this is a perfect example of brainwashing.
Right.
These girls are so brainwashed to think, and staff too, that this is the right thing to do. That this is a way that they found God. They cleaned up their act, and it was the best thing that ever happened to them. And everything that you're saying is a lie. How
Right.
could you be in a program and not know what was going on? It's just it's brainwashing, and a lot of it is Stockholm syndrome.
Yes.
They're protecting their abuser, and that goes on. And it's not the factor of why these places are still open today, but it's one of the factors of why these places are open today, because they're the perfect marketing ploy. You know, they are spreading the word that this place is good and telling other parents that this changed my life, and why don't you send your child to this place?
And the thing
So
is,
they're pitching it.
when you go to their websites, they're not going to have on the bottom, here, click here for the negative comments or the negative
Right.
reviews.
Oh, by the way, I'm an abuser.
Right. So when you
But send your daughter here.
when you go
They're
to
not
their websites,
announcement.
it's all positive. It's all
Sure.
wonderful. Everything's great. We love Jesus. Jesus is here. We're going to help your daughters get closer to God. And it's the exact opposite. So I think parents today really have no excuse because there is so much information out there. All you have to do is go to the website, you see something nice, go to the forums, go onto Google and click in negative comments about this whatever school, and you're going to find them.
Right.
You're going to find them.
Exactly.
So it's all about doing your research, doing your due diligence, and making sure that this place that you are sending your daughter or son is not going to be a place where they're going to be abused.
Right. And then again, I always emphasize the alternatives. There are other alternatives. You know, even if you have a 1% chance that your child is going to be abused, especially if you can't see your child for 3 months at a time, or if you can't just drop on the property
Right.
on a whim, that's a problem. That's a red flag. Or when things are crossed out and censored, those are all red flags. And parents need to be aware of that. I think the best solution is if parents stop feeding these, and I say feeding because they cost thousands and thousands of dollars to send your child there.
Mm-hmm.
If they stop sending their child there, well, they'll go belly up.
And the thing
Now you
is,
don't have a business,
right.
because that's what it is.
I went to the website for the Roloff. The Roloff homes are still around. There's only, I don't know if the one in Florida, the Rebecca home in Florida, is still around. I'm not sure, but I know that they do have two homes open. The it's called the Roloff Men's Home and the Jubilee Home. Now,
Oh my
they
God.
they are this is the weird part. They're only accepting people 18 and above. Okay,
Wow.
so now if you do it that way, you can kind of get away from the whole child abuse thing, and I think they're trying to keep a lower profile. But I went to
Oh
there
my God.
and I downloaded the application, okay, and it talks about what's going to be done when you get there or whatever. And and Lester Roloff used to say in his sermons, we don't charge anybody. Okay, it's offered free of charge to bring these girls into the home. Now they're saying you need to pay a certain amount, $500 or $600. You can't have any money with you. Now, if you decide to leave the program, all that money that you have accrued in their account is going to be nullified. It's theirs. They're going to consider it a gift.
Wow.
Now, instead of raping these girls and boys, they're raping them financially.
Wow. That's terrible.
Yes,
And who knows what kind of abuse is going on
right.
there?
But the thing is, you can leave if you want to. That's the whole thing. You can leave if you don't feel like that's the place for you. You can leave. They're not gonna.
Oh wow.
They'll take you to the bus station, but they're not going to provide you with transportation home. But they will keep your money. So in other words, today I think a lot of these places have learned their lesson. Okay, let's not deal with children. Let's deal with adults. So now it's basically like I said before, it's a money making machine. Let's get as much money as we can. Let's treat them like shit, excuse me, and when they leave, we'll keep their money.
Wow. That's terrible. And let
Yeah.
me just remind you that Circle of Hope Girls Ranch in Missouri is a Lester Roloff program.
Uh-huh.
That's a Lester Roloff
It's
program and
uh,
still open today.
are they bringing in teen girls?
They are bringing in teen girls.
Oh,
It's
then
a
they haven't.
Lester Roloff program. Exactly.
Uh,
That's the only other one I know, but I'm sure there are others out there somewhere.
yes, there are a lot out there that we don't know about yet. But I think as people listen to these podcasts, I've had people listen to the podcast and then they call me on my number and say, "Hey, I want to give my story." Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Just get the story out there. Because YouTube is worldwide, so everybody can listen to it. So
Exactly.
I think it's going to put some heat on some of these homes, hopefully.
I agree wholeheartedly because I feel like I don't want to speak for myself, but we in the survival community, I feel that we are just frustrated with the federal bill that we're trying to pass, that we're thinking about other ways of getting these places to close down.
Yeah.
We would love the federal bill to be passed, but what can we do now? And that is to bring attention to about the federal bill and get a hold of Adam Schiff. And then the second thing is just to spread awareness about what is happening today across our nation.
Right. So tell me about your book. When did you write this book?
I started this book in 2012 and
Okay.
it just launched 2020. I have a full-time job.
Oh, well, so do I.
And or I had, I'm laid off now because of COVID-19. But
Right.
yes, um, I just launched Pieces of Victory. It is an awareness on what took place at Victory Christian Academy, located in Ramona, California. I was sent there in 1988, and I didn't commit a crime. I didn't do drugs, and I was on honor roll mention. And my parents locked me up in a reform school
What was the
that was
reason?
worse than juvenile hall. I was sexually abused by my
Okay.
uncle, and when I confided them with that story, they didn't believe me, and I was angry. And the first thing they thought, well, she must be on drugs.
Oh, okay.
How about giving me a drug test? So the anger that I was experiencing had nothing to do with them. It was me, and I was taking drugs. Well, a simple drug test would have sufficed, but
Sure.
that was, too easy for them, I guess. No, I guess they didn't want to really know what the problem was. Perhaps, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't dig too much into it. But they
Right.
didn't give me a drug test, and off I went to Victory Christian Academy, and I was locked in there. They told me it was going to be a year. I ended up staying for 8 months. But 8 months is grueling when you're being tortured.
Right.
And even if I did commit a crime, no child deserves to be tortured.
No.
Tortured. Do we even do that to our criminals?
No, we treat
No,
our criminals better than we treat these girls.
exactly. And that's so sad. And that is what's happening today. And although this happened in 1988, this is a problem today in our country. So here I am at Victory Christian Academy, and they made me delouse when I first entered into the so-called program that was supposed to help girls.
Uh-huh.
And I was made to shower, and my peers were there in the room. It was a staff member and another girl. And after that, they dragged me to the Get Right room, which is a small closet. And I was there for 8 hours. And the only reason why I came out so early is the mere fact that they asked me if I wanted to come out, and I said, no, I want to stay in. And that was my saving grace because I wanted to stay away from them. and I wanted to decompress, and I needed more time. And they said, well, we're taking you out since you like it in there so much.
Oh.
But it saved me because I didn't realize that girls were locked in there for days, weeks, and months at a time. And I could have easily gone back in there if I messed up. Even forgetting a pencil for school were grounds for sending a child to the get right room
Have you
and
ever
drag.
have you ever, hindsight's 2020. Have you ever looked back and said, you know what? Now that I know what I know now, if I was to apply it back then, would I have just acted like I was completely nuts? Because usually um, a lot of girls, if they just act completely nuts, crazy, they'll just let them go and say, you know what, we can't handle this kid. Let's just get him out of this home.
No, that would make my life a living hell. I've seen it. I'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
If you were completely nuts, good plan though. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Well, it won't work at Victory Christian Academy
It
and
worked.
most of
It
these
worked at Rebecca.
programs. Oh, did it really? Oh, you
With
have to tell
Deanne.
me that
Yeah,
story.
Deanne Dawsey. Deanne Dawsey. She really just gave them hell, and they just couldn't handle her. Yep.
Wow.
So,
Wow, it does work. Hmm.
in some places. But go
Most of the
ahead.
girls that were rebelling against what they were doing,
Uh huh.
um, they would it would be 10 times worse for them. 10 times worse. I've
Okay.
seen girls handcuffed and duct taped to a chair. In fact, my movie trailer or my book trailer is a reenactment, and that was filmed on the property of Victory Christian Academy in Ramona, California.
And we'll put that in the
It's
link
a
below.
different ministry.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And you see a girl being duct taped. That actually happened. All of it's a reenactment of what went on in this place. And she was duct taped, handcuffed, duct taped on her mouth so she couldn't breathe, and she was crying. She could have suffocated while girls were reading a Bible. They had their Bibles open, were pulling verses out, and coinciding that
Uh huh.
with name calling, with bullying. So they were bullying her and um, having scripture to back it up, using scripture to back it up. I would say 90% or 98% of what Mackenzie said was happening in Ramona, California. So yes, there was tackling, there were handcuffs, there was duct tape, there was isolation for days, weeks, months at a time. There was also threatening to eat your own vomit.
Right.
So even if you don't eat your own vomit because you didn't throw up, because if you threw up, you were forced to eat your own vomit, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say you had just that threat of, oh my God, please don't eat my vomit. I was literally praying every day, please don't allow me to throw up. I don't want to throw up. I can't throw up. I can't throw up. All day, that's all you thought about, just to survive.
Right.
That was playing in my head all the time. And I write about that in my book.
Hmm.
My book is not all dark. There is some light going on. So while I'm locked into isolation, I reflect back of what my life was like before.
Right.
And it's more of a happy love story. So I go into a teenage love story. So it's half teenage love story and half awareness on child abuse.
I look at it this way. A lot of people, there's a lot of haters out there, and they talk about how wonderful this place was. Well, you know what? That doesn't that it's just negates all that. The child abuse. I mean, you could have no matter how
Right.
many good times or pleasant times you had, you introduce a child abuse into it, that negates everything.
I
Because
agree with you. And I also had a therapist tell me, Janine, just because someone gives you a Snickers bar doesn't mean they have a right to do what they did to
right,
you. You
right, yes,
you
and
don't need to feel guilty because they did all these good things for you.
and the thing is, a lot of these girls, um, some of them, like you and Mackenzie, have endured through it, and are, telling your stories. But there are some who desperately need help. They're scared. They have nightmares. Some of them have even
Right.
committed suicide. I mean,
A
it's,
lot. A
yes,
lot have committed
yes,
suicide. There is a big death toll of children dying in these camps because they were either killed by staff or they committed suicide inside the program, or when they leave, they still have the program inside their head and they can't take it anymore, so they take
yeah,
their life.
yes,
And it's very hard to get acclimated back into society after experiencing something like that.
yes.
I felt like an untouchable. This preacher made me feel that I was such an untouchable to society and to God, which is a double whammy.
It,
It's horrible.
it was the same guy, right? It was Michael Palmer?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it was. I always say a preacher from the darker dimension,
Well,
but they
Satan.
can look. Anybody can look it up. He's in the
Oh,
newspaper.
yeah,
He's
he's
in
on
the Los
public record.
Angeles
That's
Times.
why.
He's in Tampa Bay. Yeah, he's in the Tampa Bay Times.
That's why I said it. I mean, I'm not going to say anybody's name that's not
Right.
on public record. So, but yeah,
Exactly.
Michael Palmer. I mean, he should be held accountable. I think for what happened. That
Right.
one
It's
girl
horrible.
that died. I think that was in Ramona, California, wasn't it?
It wasn't. I was there.
Yeah,
Her name is Carrie Dunn,
yeah.
and remember, we weren't really allowed to talk to anyone, so I never really got to know who she is or
Uh
who
huh.
she was in the program because we were all on pretty much separation, even though we were technically not on separation. You
Right.
were a loner in this place because it was designed that way. And um, she was always smiling throughout the program. I remember that. And we were forced with labor. It was forced slavery, I feel. Um, we weren't given any money. And I would never volunteer my time for a ministry that's abusing girls. I used to volunteer my time at a local church. I refused to volunteer 1 minute of my time to an abusive ministry. And we were forced to do hard labor out in the field. So that's what she was doing. She was working on the church. She wasn't wearing a construction hat, and lumber fell on her and killed her. And I didn't see it. I didn't witness it. I'm only told this by the preacher. He called us all in to chapel, and we sat on the floor. I remember it as clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said that he starts crying, and he said that she died in his arms. She was just an empty shell. And then he threatened, and then I thought, oh, good, social services is going to come. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just thought, oh my God, maybe this will get, social services attention and they'll come in and rescue us all. And the minute that thought entered my mind, it exited right out when he said the following: don't get any funny ideas, girls. Her parents are fine with this and think that Carrie Dunn is with Jesus now, and that is better than her being out on the streets.
I'm telling you, if it was my child, I would have told him to shut that place down.
Right, right. Her parents could have saved us,
Yes.
but maybe they just didn't know what was going on. But wouldn't you want to investigate?
Yes, definitely.
Wouldn't you want to find out? They were just so brainwashed. I feel that a lot of these parents are tricked and brainwashed into thinking that this is the best place to send your daughter. And they even tell parents, if your daughter starts complaining about abuse that's happening in this place, he preps them. They're lying. They're making it up. Are you going to believe your daughter? She's a troublemaker.
He would have
Basically, that's why we're there. We're just troubled kids.
he would have made
Who's
a
going to
really
believe
good he would have made a really good used car salesman. So,
us?
I mean,
I think he needs to be in prison.
oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, he needs
He
to
should
be.
have
I
been
think
in
he needs to
prison
be
a long
charged.
time ago.
he needs to be charged for what happened.
Definitely. He
But
has so many reports, and I'll have to tell you that I got a hold of social services, and I guess I'll say his name. He's in the newspaper. His
sure.
name is Rick Peralta, and
Uh-huh.
he helped me. Rick Peralta did help me, but something is definitely fishy. I think there's a lot of money going on here, and I'll just let the audience connect the dots.
Right.
But Rick Peralta did go to court for me. He took a 50-page deposition. He also talked to me on the phone, and he said, Janine, your stories match another student that was sent there 5 years prior to you. And there was no internet there back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know this girl at all. And she had the same story. There were numerous police reports. I know that for a fact. And yet he got a slap on the wrist. Not meeting up to fire code standards and not having a license. What about all of the criminal acts? Does that not count? I
I guess
remember saying that to Rick Peralta, and then he asked me, "Do you want to do a civil suit against him?" And then I said, "Do I have to face him? Do I have to face him for that?" And he said, "Yes." And I was so scared. I was 18, 19 years old at the time. I was so scared to face him. I wish I would have done it, but that's hindsight now.
yeah.
What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Uh,
You were going to say something.
um, eh, he was basically just getting free labor. It's like what uh, prisons do. They'll take people out there to either clean the roads or sweep the sidewalks for all for free. So,
Right.
and the thing is,
Exactly.
when you don't have skilled labor there, like construction workers, you're this first of all the safety's right out the door because you girls don't know what you're doing, so to speak, because you've never done construction. You're teenagers, you know. You're not supposed
Right.
to be doing that stuff. But
Right.
I guess to him
And
it
without
was
a hard hat?
right. To him, I guess it was just free labor, and it cost somebody their life. And
We were running that place. We were running that place. Who was doing the cooking? We were doing the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry. I was laundry helper.
did you
And go
did you
ahead.
did you have to what did you have to wear the red and blue dresses down to the below the knees?
Below the knees, yes. Um, we had culottes.
Oh, those
So
abominable those abominable
yes,
culottes.
yes. I did not. I will refuse to wear culottes.
Oh,
Oh my God!
those are
It's
the
just a constant reminder of victory. It's
yes.
awful.
Rebecca Home had them too. Just ugly, ugly, ugly things.
We didn't have the color coordinated shirts
Uh-huh.
um, distinguishing hierarchy,
Right.
but we knew who was a helper. We knew who was on buddy. And then you know the drill on buddy, 3 feet behind another student who is ordering you around and telling you the rules. And the girls were abusing other girls. They were, I want to say it was almost like being in another country with a dictator and you're in the middle of a war and you have to kill the enemy, and if you don't do it, or torture the enemy, and if you don't do it, they'll kill your family. I
Right.
feel that that is the perfect analogy of it.
They did it for their own
These
survival.
children, right? They did it for their own survival.
Yes.
They didn't want to be bullied because now you're a target. You're a target if you're not a higher up. If you're a higher up, um, you're not picked on 24 hours a day. Can you imagine, being punished 24 hours a day or emotionally abused 24 hours a day?
You get more
That's what it was
privileges.
like,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
More privileges. You're still in a cage, but it's a bigger cage.
And it kind of makes you wonder, Janine, how many of those girls did that? now, now that they're older, are just kicking
Right.
themselves and saying, wow, I wish I had never done that. I wish I could get a hold of these girls and just tell them I'm sorry.
Right. Well, now they're living with guilt. So
Yes.
there's guilt, there's shame. They're dealing with a lot. They're taking on that responsibility, and which is understandable. But it's a shame that it's a crime. It's criminal that an adult would put a child through something like that.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I mean,
It's awful.
it must haunt them, you know. I mean, maybe not all of them. Maybe some of them were pretty sinister, but I'm sure some were just, like I said, did it to survive and not get
Right.
beat or and just now it's just like, man, I wish I could just get a hold of so and so and just tell her I am so
Right.
sorry for what I did. And maybe they can't, and it like you said, they're riddled with guilt, and
Eats them
that's
up.
it eats them up. Yes, and that's
And they definitely need me for that. It's awful. The other thing is another part of another side of that spectrum is think about how we had to suppress everything. We couldn't talk about our friends. We couldn't talk about music or movies. We had to shove everything down and talk about the Bible and talk about how God is working in our life, which is great. That's fine. But when you can't talk about feelings and you can't talk about maybe issues with your parents and try to work out real things, work on real relationships,
hmm
and be true to yourself, or talk about the abuse that's happening. We couldn't talk about that. We couldn't talk about anything. And even if it was a Christian friend and it was positive, we couldn't talk about that. So think about all that we had to suppress. And even if even the fact that we were picked on or bullied in the school, we couldn't voice that. Think about how much rage that
yeah,
these girls had by going through the program. And when they make it to, a different hierarchy, now they have the chance to vent,
right.
to let it out.
And sometimes a lot of these girls, they hide, they hide all this stuff. They suppress it, like you said, and the only way they can make it go away is through alcohol, through drugs, through whatever, and
Self-medicating.
yes,
Hmm.
they self-medicate, and it just makes it worse. It makes it worse. So, and some of them,
I agree. I agree.
a lot of these girls that I've talked to have been in therapy, which is a good thing, but I mean, they wouldn't have to be if they didn't have to go through this, you know?
Exactly. And it's important for parents to listen to this especially if they're contemplating sending their child there.
Yes.
Why even take a risk that these are the repercussions
Because like,
and
because like I said,
a relationship will be ruined?
right, like I said, back in the 80s, there was no internet. There was no way of venting these people or vetting these people out unless there was a friend that said, oh, well, these people are really good. I mean, they're really nice and it's a great place. That's the only way. It was word of mouth is what it was.
Right.
So
Exactly.
and their friends told them it was good, so they thought it was good. I don't begrudge them that. I mean, I don't blame them for it, but they it was different back then, and a lot of these girls,
It's definitely a lot of networking.
right,
And
and a
go
lot,
ahead.
and these, I mean, and it was different back then. So I mean, now, like I said, they don't have an excuse. There's so much information out
I
there, they
agree.
don't have the excuse to say, well, I didn't know what was going. Okay, there's plenty of information for you to research and make the right decision. So
We even had someone who went through the school for 4 years. Now that's 4 years of brainwashing.
yeah,
And she was saying, nothing ever happened. These are all lies. And she's telling other parents, this is the best thing that ever happened. And send your child there, to this place. It really turned my life around. And that's scary. And we don't really know. is that really somebody who went to the school, or is that staff?
Yeah.
I kind of wonder about that.
Or is it just somebody who's a spokesman for the home,
Right?
a plant?
Part-
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody who is
I hate to
being
be
paid.
paranoid, but these
Right.
people are crazy.
Yeah.
It's
And the thing is, I have learned through the years, especially with, and I'm not a Christian. I'll just put it out there. I'm not a Christian. I don't go to church. The Baptists, the Roloff homes have just left a bad taste in my mouth. But
I can see why.
every time I hear a Christian or somebody who's talking about the home say, "Oh, this place is wonderful," immediately I am suspicious. Immediately.
Right. Right.
You can't help but
I
be.
I exactly. I have PTSD. When someone says, "This is the best thing that ever happened to me," because now you're calling me a liar, and
Right.
that's what they called us in this
Yeah.
place. You're a liar. You're a whore. You're a Jezebel, over and over and over again, and it just triggers. It's triggers to trauma with me now.
How is it Christ-like to tell people they're whores? It just
I
boggles my
never
mind
heard of such a
sometimes.
thing. And I've never heard of such a thing, and it's a good thing that I was exposed to another congregation before. But it doesn't diminish what went on in this place.
Oh yeah.
It just means I was exposed, and then I came into this place, and I thought, what the hell is going on here? Doesn't anyone think that this is crazy? And all of the girls had to be on this beat to the same drum. It was like walking into the Twilight Zone. I kid you not. And that's what brainwashing is. When you can't speak your mind, not one girl would say, this is horrible. What they're doing is horrible. This is not Christ-like. I could not go back to my dorm and say, hey, don't you think this is a little out of whack?
Yeah.
This is not Christ-like. I've never seen a preacher talk about this, especially in a sermon. I've never heard a preacher say anything negative like this before about another human being. It was a different kind of world.
But
It was
when
upset.
they were in church, it was nothing but nice. And the thing is, I noticed that a lot of did you have to go to church every
Actually, chapel twice a day,
twice
and
a
the
day?
chapel twice a day was a witch trial. It was you're a Jezebel, you're a whore, you're a home wrecker, and the list went on. You're a druggie.
Right.
In spite of the fact if you did it or not, it didn't matter, and I didn't, by the way. You start to believe this. Oh, it
Right.
was classical conditioning, but on the Sunday sermons, they were different. Whenever there were parents, because that's when the parents came to visit their children, and it was
Uh-huh.
once a month. It was first 3 months, and then it was once every month. This is in Ramona. I'm speaking for Ramona. So it was one time after 3 months. So you don't see your parents for 3 months, and then it was once every month after that. And you are not allowed to leave the compound at all. You can't get out. There was a 12-foot fence and barbed wire. I was locked in, and surveillance cameras.
Yes, I read about that. It used to be some sort of facility for the FBI or something like that, or
Yeah, it was an old FBI facility.
yes.
That's exactly it. And after 7 months, you can get off the property. But that's like winning the lotto ticket and then having to give your money back. That's what that felt like. Who the hell wants to get out of the compound? And then to have my parents send me back in was torturous. I never once on my outside visits, this is how brainwashed I was and how afraid I was. I didn't want to say anything to my parents about child abuse in there. Nothing. If I did and they went back, because I knew that they would go back. Any parent would
Hmm.
automatically
Oh
go
yeah.
back or have a discussion with them, right?
Yes.
But my parents thought I was a liar. They thought I was lying about sexual abuse. Do you think I was going to say anything to them about it? No. But what happened was on the way back of my 7-month visit, which was my only outdoor visit, I
Hmm.
was crying in hysterics, crying I was hysterically crying. I couldn't control it. And no one did anything. They just sent me back. Both of my parents took me right back in there. They never said, "Are you okay? What's happening? What is happening in there? Why are you crying?" Nope, nothing. And I was right back in there. They took me out after 8 months, though.
Well,
I don't know if you want to get into that now, or
sure,
do you want to?
sure.
Okay. So on 8 months, you're supposed to be locked in there for a year, but they took me out early, and none of the girls knew that I was going to be leaving. Another staff pulled me aside. I was vacuuming and took me into my dorm. And I thought, oh, my God, is a sock out of place? Because we would get demerit if a
Right.
sock or something was out of place. I thought I was going to get punished for something. And she said, go ahead and open your drawer. And then I opened the drawer, and I thought, oh, my God, what did I do? And she said, your parents are here to pick you up. And I thought I was dreaming it. And I collected all of my things. I met my parents, and the first thing my father said is, we took you out early because it's Easter and we forgive you. The prodigal daughter returns. Trying to use that prodigal son analogy as a comparison.
Oh.
It took everything in me not to say anything or, react to that. I thought he would take me back to victory if I said anything.
Yeah.
So I was so afraid. I would literally jump out of the car if they ever tried to take me back, and I'm not joking. I would jump out of the car. That's how bad it was in this place.
I guess it would be better to go to a mental institution than it would be to go to that place. Because even in a mental institution, you're treated better. you know.
Yes, and you're allowed a phone call.
Right. My
And
goodness, this girl's crazy. We better take her to the insane asylum. Well, it's a lot better. They take care of you there.
It definitely is. In fact, when my parents didn't believe me about the sexual abuse, it was really bad at home. It was just very abusive on an emotional level, and I wanted to go. Volunteer myself into a mental facility, and I did. And I was allowed a phone call. I was allowed a visitor, and I had therapy. So
Good.
it is. There are freedoms in there.
Right.
They treat you like a human being in there. And I don't want to say all mental facilities are like that.
No.
I mean, I'm only speaking from my experience. I had more rights. I don't know what goes on in every facility.
But like you said, in an institution that's state-run, you at least get a phone call. You get 3 square meals a day.
Right.
They treat you better than they did at the home.
Victory Christian Academy. Yeah,
Yes.
Exactly. I agree.
So anything's better than that.
Anything was better than that.
Yes.
Out of all my experiences in life, I would have to say Victory Christian Academy was the worst experience of my life.
Now, as far as
I've had a hard life, and that was the worst.
Now, as far as discipline, there was a lot of paddling going on.
I didn't see anyone getting hit at Victory Christian Academy in Ramona.
Okay.
You heard screaming, definitely, throughout your stay there. We had to keep our eyes to ourselves. If another girl was being punished, just like Mackenzie's story, you had to keep your eyes to yourself, and you couldn't look at anybody else. There was the force feeding of a girl, and that is on my trailer. She didn't want to eat her food. She just arrived at the home, and you're nervous when you first get there.
Right.
I didn't want to eat. And you're just a bundle of nerves, and you're crying, and she just didn't want to eat. And she said, I'm going to throw up. And they said, if you throw up, we're going to make you eat it. And that was the first time I heard that.
Oh,
And that's when I was new to the program at that point.
okay.
And I'm hearing this going on. And another staff said, I have an idea to the preacher from a darker dimension. I'm going to go get a funnel from the kitchen and let's blend her dinner in a blender and put it down the funnel and force feed her. And that's what they did. And you can hear her gagging, and they were threatening to make her eat her own vomit.
God.
I can hear this. And that was playing in my head the whole time I was staying there, because I found out my boyfriend had a girlfriend while I was in there after 3 months. That was my first visit, and my
Mm-hmm.
mother whispers to me, your boyfriend has a girlfriend and he's happy. And she took it upon herself to tell me that wonderful news in my ear, knowing that we weren't allowed to talk about boys, right? Well, we're not
Right.
supposed to talk about boys. Why are you telling me this? You know, if you want to whisper something in my ear, why don't you give me some good news
Right. Say I love you. Say something like
about my
that, you know.
boyfriend? You know what
Right.
I'm saying? But no, that wasn't the case, and I was sick. Like, I wanted to vomit, and that's when it really started getting bad, because I knew what the repercussions were. I was praying every night, please, I don't want to vomit. They're going to make me eat my own vomit. It's scary. So whether or not they made me do that or not,
Right.
I want to emphasize on the mental abuse of it all, of
Yeah.
having that over your head every day in that place.
And a lot of
So
embarrassing things you had to do. I mean, I talked to a girl named Cindy who was with the Bethesda home, attended there, and she had to be strip searched in front of her peers. Um, she even said that they would come in unannounced, turn on the light, make you lift your two fingers up in the air so they can smell it to see if you've been playing with yourself.
oh, that's awful.
That is
That's awful.
awful. What is
They did
wrong
that
with you
at
people?
New Bethany too. New Bethany is also a roll-off school. The Hephzibah House. Those are all roll-off schools.
Yes.
And I know it's demented. That's disgusting. The things that they would do. It was almost like they were getting inside of your head.
Or getting the
Can you
rocks
imagine
off, one
that?
of the two.
Right. Yeah, that too. But can you imagine where you feel like you can't even think in your head about a boy or the outside world? Otherwise, it's the lust of the flesh. But
Right.
yet they would do something like that. Why even have that as a thought process? You're right. I just feel that they're just perverted. And like you said, wasn't sexual abuse going on in that place? They were raping the girls, the home
Uh,
that you're talking about right now, or no?
Bethesda home. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think she mentioned anything about that.
They
But
did that in New Bethany, and there was a serial rapist. The
yeah,
pastor that was running the place, he's dead, I'll say it,
yeah,
Mac Ford. He
yeah.
didn't get one repercussion for what he did, and he was a serial rapist. And I'm going to get angry right now
Right.
because he didn't even get indicted. He didn't even get indicted, and there were numerous reports. And then 1 week later, he died.
Well, I hope it
But
was.
he
I
would do the
hope.
same thing to the girls, and he was raping them, and having other pastors from other churches come in and do the same thing, because you know what, these girls are nothing according to them. We're
Right.
nothing. We were just untouchable, and we were whores, so they wanted to do whatever they wanted with us.
And I hope he died a horrible death. So yes, I mean
Well,
it. It, it,
if you
it
believe in
takes.
the afterlife, I
Yeah.
feel sorry for him.
Yes. But
I feel
I
sorry for
mean,
him.
like I said,
But
when Cindy told me that, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Only a pervert would do something like that. All right, girls, come
exactly.
up, put your fingers up, let me smell them. I mean,
That's
come on.
disgusting.
Disgusting.
That's
Exactly.
disgusting.
Beyond
And
disgusting.
I don't know if you heard this from girls before, but these preachers were raping them, and even in my place, they would do the same thing. They made sure women knew that if they were ever raped, it was their fault. And they don't call it rape. The smell of a woman, the way she dressed, her demeanor, everything, and he would go back to Genesis. And he would point Scripture out, pulling that out, that we were the temptress. We're the temptress? So it's our fault? You can't think for yourself?
You can make Scripture mean anything you want. You can twist it around, turn it around, and make it in your favor. That's what they do. I called
it the twisted scriptures in my book, Pieces of Victory. It was the twisted scriptures, because that's what they were doing. They were taking the Word of God and really, according to their liking, to get away with rape. That's sad. And not only that, think about the psychological damage to those girls that are raped. Blaming themselves. They already been prepped to blame themselves. And then after the rape, what do you think's going on? They're still hearing those sermons. Yeah. It's awful. It's awful.
And a lot of these girls are already broken from the abuse.
Exactly.
The mental abuse, the physical abuse, and then to rape them, it's
And a lot of these girls are coming from homes that are abusive.
Right.
And then they're thrown into, I think that could be another factor that why some girls think that this is the best thing that ever happened to them, because they were abused in their home, and maybe their home life was worse, and this was maybe a picnic compared to it, but it's still abuse, but they're not acknowledging that it's abuse because they're comparing it to other abuse.
Anything's better than home.
Anything's better than home.
Yes.
Or these people paid attention to me. These people made me a helper. I'm a helper. They're not bullying me. So because I'm out of the line of fire and I'm on their good list, it's conditioned love.
And you could pretty much tell the so-called ass kissers. These girls that are like willing to do anything. Okay, yes, I'll do that, whatever. And okay, these girls are complying. Okay, we're gonna make them a helper. We know that they're gonna do what we tell them to do. And of course, like you said, for their own survival, they had to abuse the girls too. So, and I don't blame them. It wasn't them. It was just the fact that they were mentally they were mentally conditioned. Their minds were moldable. Their minds were broken. So
I said in an interview, these people took our souls. I feel that the duration while I was at Victory Christian Academy, I didn't have a soul identity, and you can't even think how you want to think or breathe how you want to breathe or have passion, and it is all wiped out from under you. In essence, they took your soul.
Yeah.
And you have an identity crisis when you get out of that place. I'm not joking.
And what happened
That's what happened to me.
What happened to them? Nothing. They went to another state and started all over again.
Right. Abusing more. And the preacher from a darker dimension, I keep saying that because I don't even think he deserves his name out there. I don't even want to mention his name.
Okay. We all know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
Right.
4 more years using girls. But if we had oversight, none of that would have happened. If we had that federal bill, it wouldn't have happened.
Now it would have
been harder for him.
There was a rape of a girl that the creature from another dimension didn't get convicted for. I can't remember.
It's Ramirez.
Ramirez. Yes. Yes.
And there's Ramirez, and he raped her and then went to the parents. He was in love with her, but we don't want to call it in love with her, but according to him, he was in love with her. Went to the parents and was willing to pay $25,000 for her.
And he was still married.
He was going to buy their daughter. I don't know if he was at the time. I really don't know. We'll have to reread that article. Maybe we
Uh-huh.
can.
I read the
I can
article. There was an
somehow.
article out there, and it said that he was still married. But I don't know. I'll
Oh
have to
wow.
reread it too. Maybe I'm mistaken, but maybe not. Eh,
Right. And whether or not he was, what he's doing is criminal, of course.
Yeah.
But I can attach that to when I post this podcast. I'll attach it. I'll
Uh-huh.
attach the article on
Okay.
Rebecca Ramirez.
Yeah. Well, I'll put that in the description also. Um, yeah. So, I mean, it's is he still alive?
He's
Do
still
you know?
alive as far as I know. Yeah, as far
Okay.
as I know, he is. His wife had passed,
Oh,
but he's still alive. He
she would.
needs to be prosecuted for this.
Oh,
He really does. It's never too late.
well,
It's, you
statute of
know,
limitations as far as the Ramirez case is it's already passed.
I know
And
that there are some states, Louisiana, where it was 30 years or something to that effect. Does that ring a bell to you? Because I
no,
was a rape advocate for Jennifer Halter, and she reported it years later. And the the statute of limitations um, is different in the state of Louisiana. So I guess it's
right.
different in each
Yes.
state. I'm curious
Yes.
to know what it is in Florida,
Yeah.
but
I don't know. I have to do some research on that. But I know there's like in Texas, the statute of limitations is I think 7 years. But the reason why they have the statute of limitations is because people sometimes will forget details. Some people die, and of course everybody, no matter if you're a pervert or not, everybody's entitled to a fair trial.
right,
Whether we think they deserve it or not, they're still entitled to a fair trial. So if you have people that, after 7 years, I mean, can you remember everything that happened 7 years ago? You know what I mean? So,
right.
but that's why they have a,
And
a statute of
the
limitations.
statute of limitations. But
Right.
the other side of the spectrum is a lot of survivors, including myself, and I wasn't raped in this reform school. I was raped by a family member prior to the school.
Right. Okay.
But what I'm trying to say is I was so afraid I'm using myself as an example, although
Hmm.
it wasn't rape from the school. I was so terrified of this preacher that I didn't even want to I didn't want to give my testimony in court in front of him. I didn't want to see him. I was terrified. And maybe years later, stronger. And you know what I'm saying? And I'm
Right.
thinking that's why other survivors come forth later, because they feel stronger to do it.
Right. As you get older, you get wiser. You get stronger. Yes.
Right.
So, but you know,
That,
maybe maybe he'll do it again, and maybe he might get convicted this time. We can only hope.
what I'm curious to know is how many other girls he did that to that didn't come forward.
Right. Right. How many? There could be a
How
lot.
many?
How many girls did he stare at? I mean, I don't know if there was. You said there wasn't any. You didn't know if there was any paddling going on, but I know there were some places where they would make the girls take off their panties when they
He would look us
paddle
up
them.
and down
Yeah.
all the time, but naively, when I was 16, I thought he's looking at our souls, that he's trying to inspect, like he's doing the stare down.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't
You're
think.
looking me up and down and scanning to see if, because I'm a problem child. But he would do it to every girl that was coming in. He would do this
I
look
don't.
up and down.
I don't think it was your
We were
soul he
living
was
in the
looking
chapel.
at.
No, I don't think he was.
So, well,
Yeah.
he's.
I was interpreting it because he made us feel that we were just untouchable and unworthy of God. So at that point, I felt naked. But in that regard, I felt dirty, shameful, unfit to God, all those things that he would say on the pulpit about us, that we were heathens. He would call us heathens.
Right.
We were unright. We were not right with God. What? Because we broke a rule, because we forgot our pencil. We're not right with God. I mean, they were stupid rules that we had to follow if our nails weren't short enough. So I pretty much clipped my nails so far because I have long nail beds. I would
Right.
make my skin bleed because I didn't want to get a demerit.
Demerits. Yes, I was going to ask you that. They went on the demerit system.
We were on the
Yeah.
demerit system, so those are lines, and it
Yes.
would be. I would give you an example. How about if you wanted to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night? You have to wake up your helper, and they have to shut the alarm system down. You can't just walk out and go to the bathroom. Walk to the bathroom. You have
Yeah.
to have them shut the alarm off and take you to the bathroom, but you get punished for that. I will not wake up a helper in the middle of the night to take me to the bathroom 500 times. And if you're a
Fi-
helper, if you're a helper and you make a mistake, let's say I'm a helper
hmm
and I have to shut the alarm off and take myself to the bathroom, I would write myself a demerit for 1,000 lines because I'm a helper. I get it twice as bad.
Wow. Uh, I don't know. These homes are just something's got to be done. Like you said, that is it just in California where they have that legislation that's dead in the water?
No, it is a federal bill.
Federal
Yeah.
bill.
So
Oh,
a
that's right. You did
federal
say federal
bill
bill.
that we were
Yes, you
trying
did
to
say.
pass. It's okay. It's okay. Because I emphasized that George Miller is from California and Adam Schiff. That's
Okay.
probably why you thought that. But yes, it is a federal bill that we were trying to pass. But I say it's dead in the water. They need to resurrect it, reintroduce it. These are my choice of words.
Right.
Um, I think the more awareness that we have out there and the more this goes viral, um, the more people will contact their representative and Adam Schiff. So this is a good thing.
There's been a lot of positive views on the McKinsey story. So people are, like I said, people are looking at it and watching it. So hopefully we get more views and people are aware and they could probably resurrect that bill again. We can only hope.
Right, exactly. In
So,
fact, we should send all of those videos to Adam Schiff. Here you go, Adam
or we could
Schiff.
just send them the links and say, hey, look at these. These are the girls that were
Right,
at that
that's,
home, you know.
I agree.
So maybe we can
He'll
do
have
that.
enough to keep him busy for a lifetime. I know I'm being comical, but it's really sad. It's
Yeah.
sad that I have a lineup right now. It's sad that you have a lineup right now. It's good for awareness, don't get me wrong, but it's
Yes.
sad how many survivors there are. I'm going to interview someone tomorrow. Her name is Carly Jean, and she's a survivor of the Circle of Hope. She got out 3 years ago.
Wow.
And she was raped inside the Circle of Hope. And I'm going to interview her tomorrow, and I'm going to have her parents call in too. Her parents are supporting her.
hmm Okay.
So that's tomorrow. But 3 years, that was 3 years ago. That means this is happening today. It's still going on.
And
And you know about Rachel Kelso, I'm sure, because you're in this circle. Yes?
no, I don't actually.
Oh, okay. I have to tell you about Rachel Kelso.
Go ahead.
So Rachel Kelso is inside the Circle of Hope. She's special needs, and she is 30-something years old. So she's been there, I want to say, for over a decade, maybe going on 15 years, right?
Uh
They're
huh.
abusing her. She's in there for life. So she was adopted, and her adopted parents dropped her off at the Circle of Hope. So they're in the custody of the people that are running the Circle of Hope.
Uh huh.
And they are abusing the girls. They're
Oh,
Rachel Kelso, who's special needs. And it's so sad. It's so sad that this goes on, and America just turns a blind eye. And I would like everyone to hashtag where is Rachel Kelso and hashtag expose COH, which is Circle of Hope. And this is the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch that's in Missouri, still open today.
Rachel Kelso, you said?
Rachel Kelso, and you can look up Amanda Householder
Uh-huh.
and all of her information. She is talking about Rachel Kelso.
Okay.
And all of her TikToks, YouTubes, Facebook. And Facebook, she goes by a different name.
Okay. Is she out of the home now?
I'll give you.
Or is she still there?
Amanda Householder is out of the home, but Rachel Kelso,
Is still
we're trying
there.
to save her. She's
Right.
still there. Special needs, 30. I think she's 30 or 31 years old, and she's still there. She can't come out. Someone needs to get her out of that compound. And we don't know if she's being sexually abused or not. I'm only speculating.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to accuse anyone if I don't know if she's
Right.
being sexually abused. But when you hear girl after girl after girl, and I'm interviewing Carly tomorrow, and she was raped. And how do we know what's going on with her? I'm just saying, how do we know?
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
It's gotten to the point, Janine, where when someone says, yeah, this person was raped at this Christian, doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me anymore. It used to be like, oh my goodness. Now just like, oh, okay. Don't surprise. Not at all. It's
just breeding grounds
right.
for
It's
something like that. And it's so easy to disguise it until they're caught. But it's so easy to disguise it because people put their faith in other people. And that's the thing. You're putting your faith in a person.
right. It's almost like it's expected. You know what I mean? I mean, every time you hear about a Christian, I put that in quotes, home, it's always some report of sexual abuse. It's like it's expected. I mean,
It's sad.
it is sad.
And I'm not trying to bash Christianity. I am not trying to bash Christianity at all.
Well, no, it's not the.
These
It's not. It's
those
not.
monsters.
Right. It's not the congregation at the church. It's those freaking monsters out there that are leading the church, that are running these homes, that are doing it, all under the disguise of religion.
Right. They're taking on the flag of religion, and that's despicable.
Yes, it is. Extremely despicable.
And as a Christian, Christians should be angry at that. Christians should be supporting us. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Are there some Christians that are supporting you, or are they still reluctant to believe you?
I have some that think I'm a Christian basher, but I have some that think that, oh my gosh, this is horrible and it needs to be exposed. And I'll give you an example. Jerry Taylor, who's my filmmaker, he's Christian. And you know what he did for me? I'll tell you.
What?
He heard one story, and that was the one that I did with John Hightower. And it was for Pieces of Victory. But he was interviewing me. Hightower was interviewing me, and I'll send that over to you. He filmed it, and he heard the story, and he was just, flabbergasted that this is happening in America. He was in shock. And after he heard that, I told him that I was thinking about having a TV show. How much are you going to charge me for it? And he said, you know what, Janine, I'll do it for free as a donation.
Wow.
Because I believe in the cause. I believe in the cause. Isn't that awesome? And
Yes.
then I had another Christian TV show, Teen TV, and his name is Dale Davidson. And he interviewed me, and he interviewed another Rebecca Home for Girls, which is New Bethany, the girls there, and he supported all of us. In fact, he gave a donation when I was Jennifer Halter's rape advocate. He gave a donation to have us fly over there, to have us fly to Louisiana so we can report the rape. That's awesome. He is just an amazing human being. Dale Davidson, King TV, Jerry Taylor. There's another Christian that's supporting me. His name is Jim Walker. Jim Walker on Perspectives. And I'll send you all of those videos too if you'd like.
Or just send me the links.
Also supporting me too.
Yeah,
I'll send you the links.
Send the links and we can put it in the description. But yes, it's great that a lot of these Christians are supporting you. But then, of course, you have those Christians that are so, what's the word I'm looking for? There's not brainwashed, but they're so blinded
Right.
by these people. It's just they could
That they're
never
not
they could never do anything like that. I think you're
right.
lying, you know.
Exactly.
And most of
And it's
them,
so sad.
yes,
It's sad, but they're out there, and I think they just think it's an attack on Christianity. Maybe they've heard it so much they think it's
right.
an attack, and I'm not trying to defend them.
Hmm.
But if you truly knew who I was as a person, and if you really dug deep, you would know I'm not Christian bashing. Do you know what I'm
Right. Well,
saying?
yes,
I'm
yes.
monster bashing.
The- we're not
So,
out. See, we're not out to bash Christians. That's the thing. That's what I tell
right,
these girls. We're not out to bash them. We're just out to
right.
expose the people who are
We're
who are saying one thing and doing another.
we're exposing the truth, and isn't that what
Exactly.
Christianity is about? The truth. It's about
Right.
the truth.
Yes. You know, I've always heard, you know, like I said, I've heard a lot of sermons on Lester Roloff, and what the sad part is, if you go, there's a website called roloff.org, and you can listen to 24 hours of this man.
Oh no.
Yes.
You know that was part of our punishment. So when we were locked
Yes.
up, I forgot to tell you this. When we were locked up in the Get Right room,
Yes.
which was a small closet, by the way, and it was isolation for days. Let me reiterate: days, weeks, months at a time. You were listening to Lester Roloff
Yes.
over and over and 24/7,
Right.
24/7, and it's abusive sermons. They're not fluffy sermons.
No, they're
They're
not.
not fluffy. They're
They're
abusive, and they're blaming women for rape. They are blaming women for rape
yes,
in these sermons.
I've heard a lot of them, and he's talking about how, you know, women, you shouldn't dress provocatively because then you just cause men to lust after you. And yeah, I've heard it. So personally, I don't think that Roloff ever um, knew about what was going on. If there was any sexual abuse going on in the homes, I don't think he knew about it. But I don't know. I'm not sure. Like I said, he was a true believer. King James all the way. You know what I mean? He, because he didn't seem like the
I
kind of
heard that is the best translation is King James.
yeah,
That's what I've heard.
yeah. Well,
But I don't. I'm away from all the organizations. No organizations for me. I have my spirituality, and whatever that is,
hmm,
that's between myself. That's that's my personal belief system, and I believe in the freedom of choice and the freedom to believe what you want to believe. You know,
yes,
I don't have faith in people. I've kept spirituality, but I've lost my faith. I
hmm,
hate to say it, in humanity. Um, and I don't want to be negative about humans, but they are. It's just awful. And lately, I've just been very bonding with survivors, and they're trying to get these places closed down. And when I refer to lost my faith in humans, I'm talking about these monsters that are running
right.
these places.
I recently did a podcast with a guy that I knew who was in a music band, and it was a Christian band, and the guy who was leading it was a self-proclaimed Christian, and he ended up getting convicted for sexually assaulting boys. You know, so it doesn't surprise me, not at all. You know, so it's I don't know. Like I said, these homes need to
I
be
feel like
these homes.
it's the perfect place to get someone who is vulnerable or gain trust. You're gaining a lot of people's trust
Right.
because a lot of people trust other Christians with fellowshipping, and they think, well, he's a Christian. What could go wrong? But now you're putting
Yeah.
your faith in humans,
And then
and that's not where your faith
and
should be.
then of course you scare them so badly when you if you do rape them, then you could say if you say anything, you know, you're going to be in trouble. And of course they're so scared that they don't say anything. You know what I mean? So it's perfect. It's these guys
Right.
who are running these homes who are raping these girls. it's the perfect ground for them to do this stuff.
Right. It's definitely breeding grounds
Yes,
for rape.
with actually when you think about it, like with the creature from the lagoon there, um, he doesn't get any repercussions, so
Right.
he got away scot free.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're talking about, I'll go ahead and say it, Palmer running Victory Christian Academy, and also Max, um, who is running New Bethany. Mac Ford was a serial rapist, and he got away with
Yeah,
that. And other preachers. There were other staff
sure.
and
Max,
preachers.
Max who? I'm sorry.
Mac
Okay,
Ford, and also
okay.
there was money exchanged,
Oh,
by the way. So he, in the conversion therapies with James Swift, when you watch The Haunted,
uh-huh.
season 2, third one down, Cult of Torture, he talks about how he could hear them make, and maybe it was during when we were filming in LA. I could only see that a couple of times on Netflix, but because it's so horrifying, it's horrible that this actually happened to a human being.
Right.
It makes me so upset thinking about it. But he could hear them paying for money exchanged, of how much they were going to pay football players, how they were going to pay money to rape him. It's
Jeez.
just, so not only was he collecting money from the parents, this preacher, and it costs about $25,000 to send their kid there to a conversion therapy, to pray the gay away, to
Yeah.
convert them over to straight. That's awful. And then he was collecting money on the back end, on
Yeah.
and politicians probably. I don't know. I don't want to get into that.
Right.
I'll leave it out. Everybody
That's
can connect the dots,
that's
but
another story altogether. So, all right. Well, Janine, this was very informative. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today.
thank you so much for having me. And if you are considering sending your child to a lockdown residential program, boot camp for kids,
Yes.
conversion therapies, wilderness camps, if you have a 1% chance that this might happen to your kid, why would you even take that risk? There are other alternatives. You can visit sia-now.org. Again, sia-now.org, or helpforteens.org, which is James Swift. He is helping kids get off the street that have been kicked out for being gay. Helpforteens.org.
Right.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me on your show.
Send me those links, and we'll put them on the description.
I have
Yes.
a lot of links to send
Yes.
you.
Send me. I'll put them in the description. Send me all the links. If all the links you
Oh,
have, send them to me. I will put them in the description below. So, and of
thank
course,
you so much.
if you want to know more about Janine's story, uh, go to her website. Was it JanineMiller.com? Is that
Yes,
yes,
it's
Janine?
easier to remember pieces at victory.com because I have a
Oh,
redirect.
okay.
Because my name is spelled weird. It's Pieces of Victory, so piecesofvictory.com.
Yes, and buy her book, Pieces of Victory. I think I'm going to go on the
Oh,
website and buy that as well. You've got me,
oh, that is so
you've got
sweet.
me very interested in it, so I'm going to go to your site and buy it.
Can you handle a love story?
Oh yes, actually, you know what I think you should do with this book is you should make it also into an audiobook because there's a lot of people out there
Yes.
who are driving in their cars, who can't read, or people who are working. Like when I'm working, I can't read a book, so I put on my headphones and I listen to audiobooks. So I think maybe,
It's definitely in the making,
oh, it is.
and
Okay.
I am getting at, yes, it's in the making. It's my next project. So after COVID-19, when I can get back on my feet and I get back to work and I
Right.
start paying, then I can hire the actors that I hired in LA
Uh-huh.
for my short film. I'm going to have them participate in the audiobook. I already
Yes.
have a couple lined up right now that say they would like to.
That would be awesome.
Valerie Rose is one of them. She has a beautiful voice. So she's the one that played me. Yes.
Okay. Yes, that would be great. Because like I said, not only can they read it, they can also listen to it if even if you get reach a whole spectrum of people too. People who are blind, who can't read, they can also listen to it. So you're
Right.
reaching
Exactly.
other people. So anyway, yes, thank you.
Many platforms for
Yes,
sure.
many platforms for sure. Yes. All right, Janine, stay on the line real quick. I'm going to end this podcast. Okay, just a
Thank
moment.
you.
I want to thank everybody for listening today. If you would like to know more about Janine Miller's continued journey in raising awareness for the abuse in these homes, you can go to her website and her YouTube channel, which will be in the description below. If you would like to know more about her time there, you can also purchase her book, Pieces of Victory, which I highly recommend. We need to raise awareness for these girls and boys that are, to this day, being abused in these reformatories. These inhuman, sadistic, perverted monsters need to be stopped and prosecuted for their crimes of abuse, rape, torture, and in some cases, death. In Dave Pelzer's book, A Child Called It, he says, childhood should be carefree, playing in the sun, not living a nightmare in the darkness of the soul. The late great Christopher Hitchens said, to terrify children with the image of hell, to consider women an inferior creation, is that good for the world? I don't think so. For the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.